Hi guys, and welcome to day 2 of the 90-day Organized Life Blueprint Challenge. If you're unfamiliar with what we're doing here, we're going to take the next 90 days and go through a step-by-step process to fully organize your work, home, and goals so that you can get a head start on 2025. Yesterday, we did a full life self-assessment, and I will leave that linked in the cards up above. And yesterday we focused on a Notion template to do the self-assessment, but today I'm going to be using the Organized Life Blueprint workbook. I've actually downloaded it onto my iPad, and I'm going to be using this to walk me through the process. I'm going to be walking you through day 2 today, which is finding your values. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to look to standardize measures of individual strengths or personal values. Now, as a psychologist, I use multiple psychometrically valid measures to determine individuals' values. That just means that the tool meets statistical standards for measuring what it says it's measuring. It has some sort of predictable consistency, and it's acknowledged, sometimes even in peer-reviewed journals, as being a valid measure of that thing. So today we're talking about values, and my favorite psychometrically sound starting point is the VIA Character Strengths Survey. I like to use the VIA Survey of Character Strengths, and the easiest way to find this is to type in UPenn, because it was developed by psychologists at the University of Pennsylvania. So I type in UPenn VIA Strength Survey. I'm also going to leave a link to the UPenn website where you can access it down below, and I also have a link in that free workbook. So this is what it looks like when you're at the UPenn Positive Psychology Center, and it tells you a little bit about the VIA Strengths of Character Survey. It is 240 questions, so it does take a little bit of time to get through. And I tend to retake this survey every 2 to 4 years. Whenever I've had a major shift in my life, I retake my VIA Character Strength Survey to see how it changes. I'm going to share with you what my results are in a little bit, but there is an expected internal consistency with this survey, meaning that usually there's not much movement for people. Although things that we value do change over time, which is why I do a values assessment for myself every year. But for the most part, there's not too much movement expected year to year. So it's a long survey, 240 questions, and it uses a 5-point Likert system. So you are saying how much you agree with a series of items. And ultimately, it has you reflect on 24 different strengths of character, and it gives you a list of where you fall. So it doesn't necessarily mean that there are strengths and weaknesses. It's really just like what your top strengths are. And this is important because it does help us understand our behavior and what we're reporting we're generally good at. But it's really just the first step in having a full picture of your value system. So I'm going to bring up my VIA Character Strength Survey and share with you where I'm at. Right up at the top for me, we have love of learning, which is really loving learning new information, mastering new skills. After that, we have judgment. So that's thinking things through, examining things from all sides. I'm more of a thinker than a feeler. There is appreciation for beauty and excellence, and that is a theme that I know comes up over and over for me. I really like things to look neat and pretty. I want my spaces to look nice. I want to look nice. And this is where it's important to understand that values are really unique and individual to you. Now, you might think that putting on some red lipstick is like a frivolous use of time, but for me, it's something that is important. And that's what's beautiful about values. It really is focusing on what's important to you and being free from judgment, because what's important to one person might not be what's important to someone else. So it's not necessarily about just going along with some things that society might value. It's really about identifying what is it that you value and what is it that's important to you. So for some people, having your pens color coordinated or having a nice outfit to wear might not be important to them. That might be lower. And for me, it's something that I value. It's like beauty, aesthetics, excellence. Next is self-regulation. That's regulating your own feelings, being disciplined, being able to control your emotions and your different drives. And this is again pretty consistent with even something like this 90-day or organized life blueprint, right? It's about feeling like I'm in control of a situation, or at least understanding what's within my control and trying to optimize the control I have within that. Next is prudence. That's being careful, not taking unnecessary risks. It is something that I have probably leaned more toward in the past. I'm actually becoming like a little bit more open and free to put myself out there. Next is hope. And that is expecting the best in the future, working to achieve it, really feeling like I have agency in my own life and in bringing about positive change. Sometimes looking at things that aren't necessarily a strength might give you some insight into yourself and a little bit more self-awareness. So I know that I tend to struggle in teams, especially in big teams. I'm more comfortable in smaller teams. And then there are some other things like social intelligence that has to do with like those social interactions, and makes sense, right? Leadership, team building, social intelligence, all of those things might cluster together. It doesn't necessarily mean I'm particularly bad at social intelligence, just that I might be better at other things. So this is my list as it stands, and I do take it every so often, and I do see minor changes, but for the most part, things that cluster near the top have been there for quite a while, and things that cluster near the bottom, those maybe change a little bit more over time depending on the situation, but this is where I'm at right now. Last time I did a lot of my activities on Notion. This time I'm going to be going back and forth between my Notion template and my workbook so that we can get through and identify this year's core values. Next, we're going to review a series of values lists and see what resonates with us. I have my own 150 word values list that is in that free workbook as well as up on my website. I'll leave links to both down below, and I'll also share with you what that looks like here on my iPad. So here are the value words, and this list is by no means exhaustive. There are several different value word banks that you can identify. James Clear has a really good one, and I'll leave some links to some other websites with additional values lists down below. But this might be a good place for us to start here since we are trying to get this done in a day. What I'm looking for are things that I believe in, things that are important to me, things that I find motivate me over time. And I'm going to be highlighting those words. So going through the list, I'm going to grab a highlighter here, and I'm gonna look through these words. Now we're gonna do a few passes of this list. So I'm gonna start with a yellow marker. If you've printed out this workbook or you're not working on a digital space, you can start by just placing a 1 next to the word that resonates with you. So for me, I have like some level of acceptance. I'll say accountability, accuracy, appreciation, awareness, calmness, competence. Now I've gone through and I've identified 20 value words. What I like to do next is see if some of these value words are actually getting at the same thing. So I'm looking at whether or not they cluster around a specific topic or domain. So I'm seeing some things here, things like accountability, discipline, competency, here's another self-discipline, and maybe a little bit of learning and intelligence. There is something that all of these words have in common, and I think the common thread here is about mastery. I really like being good at something, and I think that kind of covers most of those value words. So I'm gonna go ahead and write down mastery as a potential core value. I think accuracy probably also falls under that. All right, I think that pretty much covers this like mastery domain. What is left? I am seeing another kind of theme here. So if we look here at beauty, appreciation, creativity, wonder, it's giving me like a theme, but I'm having trouble identifying what it is. Because if I put all those words together, I think about going out for a walk and how I love looking at the gradients of green across the woods behind my house, the different color flowers that I have in front of my door. So I think that this has something to do with presence, calm, self-awareness, and also acknowledging things like beauty, having some wonder about it. Maybe we're looking at two distinct core values here. It looks like one is aesthetics. How things look and being surrounded or acknowledging beautiful things is important to me. And then there's also this self-awareness, this introspection that seems to be surrounding some of these things. This concept of awareness and appreciation, it requires introspection. There is also resiliency, self-reliance, even that self-discipline and independence. So I think we're getting at another general theme of self-awareness, self-reliance, introspection. And I think maybe self-awareness covers that domain pretty well. There is also, I think that there's two other themes here that I'm seeing. One of them is around calmness. There is calm, there is balance, a little bit of beauty and appreciation. It does require kind of like that slowdown. And I do know this about myself. I feel as though I really value equanimity, like calm, chillness, equanimity. How shall we spell that? Equanimity. All right, that value of calmness, stillness. Now, the last thing here will cover probably all of the rest of these. What is left is flexibility, kindness. I would say resiliency falls into this a little bit. And I think flexibility really covers the remaining values. And that's because it's flexibility with like how things are done, which you can connect flexibility and creativity here. It's also flexibility with other people's behaviors, not necessarily like with my own morality, but giving other people grace and flexibility and being forgiving of them, and also just being kind to people. I think all of that falls under this like umbrella of being flexible, flexible in your thoughts, flexible in your actions, flexible in how you interact with other people. So flexibility, and for those of you who have been on the channel for a long time, know that for some time we were called flexible forethought, which is like having flexibility about how you plan your life. So I think this values list really captures these value words: mastery, aesthetics, or like a nice aesthetic, self-awareness, equanimity, and flexibility. So I think that narrows down these value words to 5 general themes. Now, the next thing that we're gonna do to really hone in on our core values is to do a review of people that you admire. So I'm gonna start a new list here. We're gonna go with header 2, people that I admire. And I'm just going to describe these people to you just so that they stay anonymous. There's a peer in my life. I really admire how she goes through work. She is a fellow scientist and she has a good balance between work and home. She prioritizes things like her faith, her family, her external obligations to the community, while still being considered a really competent, credible scientist that contributes in the world of academia. So I really admire her. And as I'm describing her, I can identify what are those things that I admire about her. And I think I admire the balance. I admire her values-based behavior. I know what's important to her, and it's different than what's important to me, but she acts consistent with those values. And I like the family feeling that I have when I'm around her. Even when I'm invited to her house, I just feel like this is a very welcoming, kind place to be. Then I have a physician that I really admire, and he was my mentor probably 2 jobs ago, and he gave me some important lessons about life. And it was around that area of social intelligence, the secondary gain that you get from developing social capital, like the importance of not just being academic and regimented and fact-focused, but also the people side of it. He also pushed through unpopular but evidence-based opinions. And I love that about him, because a lot of people, they talked a lot of shit, about him behind his back, or were just saying like he's a try-hard or something like that. And you know what? Like, I'm okay. Clearly my values say that I'm okay with people that are trying hard, and I'm okay with people that are making evidence, fact-based decisions. So I think as I'm talking about him, I'm identifying like, here are the things that I think are important and like why I admire him. And he pushed unpopular but empirically based decisions. He was steadfast in the face of opposition. And not just to be obstinate, but because he knew that what he was saying was based on fact, science, and those are things that are important to me. So steadfast in opposition, maybe fact-based. Someone else that I admire, I met out in Hawaii. We lived in Hawaii for a little bit, and she just gave me warm mom vibes. I felt like she took me under her wing. She was very caring, never rushed, but also really straightforward. And I really felt unconditional positive regard from her. She cared about me as a mentee. She could also give it to me straight when she had to, but I always felt like she was coming from a place of love. So I would say unconditional positive regard, and maybe a little tough love. All right, who are some other people that I admire? I have a family member, I'm not gonna say who, but she is particularly warm, loving, affectionate, and present. All of those things I really admire about her. And I'm seeing kind of like this, especially with a woman in my list, where I am looking for this kind of nurturing component. And I'm not trying to judge my own value systems here, but I am identifying that these are the kinds of things that warmth and kindness is something that I value in others. There's one more person on my person I admire list, and she is a high-ranking military official. I was fortunate enough one day to have a conversation with her specifically around human performance and optimization within hospitals and medical systems. And she gave me like the best piece of advice I've gotten from someone. She said that she wants most people to operate at 80%, 100% of the time. And that is because you need to have enough in reserve to be able to push to 100% when the mission requires. So sometimes life will require you to push a little harder, but if you're always going at 100%, you don't have anything left in reserve to push forward. And that has always stuck with me. And years later, I ran into her like in a Starbucks, totally random in the DC area. And I told her what an impact she had made on my life with just that concept. And that's still something that I share with my clients or people that I am mentoring. And I think what that brings up is my value of balance and calm and not being like in this constant state of hurried alertness. So I would say kind of like that equanimity is coming up again. All right, we have one more exercise left before we narrow down onto our top 5 values, and that is life experiences. So I have life experiences here, and I'm gonna go through my favorite things to do in life. So I will say that my favorite thing to do is to be on a cruise in the water. And part of why I love being on cruises is that we are fully disconnected. I don't get the internet package unless there's something that I really need to be on, and then I'm just like hopping on and hopping off. The reason we're identifying these life experiences is to identify what about it brings you joy. What about it is consistent with that underlying value system? So I think being disconnected, having a moment for calm and peace, all of those are really nice. I will also say that there is increased connection with my family when I'm on the cruise because they also are not on their phones and not online. So we tend to get along better, be more present with each other, present mind, focus. All of those things are part of why I love cruising. I also love going for walks, and I think that it's because I like to look at nature. I like to look at different colors, things that are beautiful. I like to get some exercise in. all of those are reasons why I love going for a walk. So I think the aesthetics piece, the like fresh air, I also really like being at the gym. I loved when I had a gym community that I could go to. They were pretty much like my exclusive friend group when I lived in New England. Now we're back in the Mid-Atlantic region and I have a gym at home. I do really like to be out there. And I think, again, it's about the break. It's about the focused effort. It's about working hard and achieving something. So there's like an achievement component to it. All right. What else do I love? I really like making YouTube videos. I've been making a variety of different YouTube videos over the last like 5 or 6 years, and it was mostly focused on my hobbies related to planning, and it's kind of emerged where I've brought more of my professional life as a psychologist as well as a coach into these videos. But I really like content creation. And I think it's because of the creativity, and I could also use my expertise in a creative way. And I get to incorporate aesthetics and how things look. I also am a bland person at work, and I get to actually be like my true personality. I get to do my hair and wear bright lipstick, and all of these things might be trivial, but they're an outlet for me to actually step out of a system that could be pretty gray for me. Even though I love being a scientist, actually collecting data and analyzing data and like doing science is such a small part of what I do right now. And there's like a weight to the administrative tasks. So I think it makes sense that I like this because I'm still doing something kind of like academic, but creative, fun, and beautiful. Creativity, fun, and beautiful. All right, what other life experiences? Going way, way back, I really enjoyed 2 specific points in my academic life. One of them was related to a big national science fair in high school, and the other one had to do with my PhD. Wanted a PhD in psychology, and I wanted to be a behavioral scientist pretty much since I was like 9 years old. It's kind of a strange story, but actually getting that PhD, the moment that it was conferred upon me, I remember like I'm getting worked up just thinking about it because it was just like a culmination of a lot of work. It was a point of extreme pride. And that like high school science fair is like a nationwide science fair where I submitted, like it really was a behavioral health, it really was a behavioral science type topic. Those were big points in my life. So I would say like academic achievement, and part of it, I don't think that it's recognition. I think that it is knowing that I worked hard and that I earned something. So I think that's what it is. It's like maybe earning acknowledgement. Because if I'm being really genuinely honest with myself, and like we're all friends here and no one's gonna see your values list, so be genuine and honest with yourself. Part of it is the acknowledgement as well. It's not just like earning it in a vacuum. There is also a push for external validation. So I have these 5 life experiences. I have the people that I admire. I have my values list that I've just kind of created from larger lists. And I also have my character strengths. Now we got to put all of this together and try to identify your top core values. So here I'm going to go with a big header and my core values. And you can start with a draft list and then whittle it down. I think that pretty clearly I seem to be attached and believe that aesthetics, things like beauty, are one of my core values. I like things to look good. I also think that knowledge, intellectual, conventional measures of achievement are important to me. So I'll say achievement and knowledge. Okay, I think those are kind of consistent with it. There's also like this flexibility-ness in it that I really think, flexibility, there we go. I think flexibility kind of covers kindness. Calm. this equanimity word that I also tend to really feel like an affinity to. And I think that at this point, after you've done all of these activities, you start to get a feel for what you are emotionally drawn to. So I think I'm emotionally drawn to things that are beautiful. I have a visceral reaction to things like achievement. I don't know if like knowledge, as I'm saying that, knowledge isn't giving me like the same feeling. So I'm gonna remove knowledge. I think it's really about achievement rather than necessarily like knowing things. So like knowledge for knowledge's sake. Flexibility, and that is like in the way that I think, in the way that I treat others, and calm. I don't know if there's anything else in here. I am seeing like that warmth, kindness, connection that I admire in other people, but it seems almost like selfish, like I like to receive it. And I'm not sure if I value necessarily giving it. And I'm trying to be really open and not non-judgmental about that. And just saying, do I feel warmth and kindness, or just warmth and affection? Because I think kindness and how you treat others, I think that there's flexibility and openness to treating people well. I definitely don't think that you should be purposefully mean or arrogant. So I do have a general flexibility, but taking it further to like that warmth, I am not sure if it's like resonating with me. So I kind of feel like the only thing that might be missing here in this core value is like creativity, but I also think that flexibility in the way that you think about things and the way that you act and feel about others, that's kind of creativity as well. So I really think that we're down to my core values: aesthetics and beauty, achievement, flexibility, and equanimity. Now, if you're comfortable, share your core values down in the description box below. And join me later in the week when I give a full overview of what I've been working on over the first week of the 90-day Organized Life Blueprint Challenge.